So as Suresh said, my name is Brad Ulrich. I'm here on behalf of the Strategic Operations Office under S&TPO. And I'd like to introduce a little bit about strategic operations as well as the centers to you today. So just a quick outline. I'm going to talk to you, as I said, about Strategic Operations Office. And I'll let you know why we have the centers and who the centers are. And you see the and chain reaction innovations, which is not necessarily a center at the laboratory, but is an important effort that we're supporting at the laboratory and kind of feeds into some of what we're doing with the centers. And then I'd like to touch a little bit on intellectual property and specifically intellectual property management plans, why they're important, how they benefit you. And I think it kind of feeds in some of what, weaves in with what some of the others have been talking about today. So first of all, who is strategic operations? What is strategic operations? What do we do? Well, quite simply, we do the work that you don't want to do, right? You as researchers are skilled at doing the research, being brilliant in that space, but there's a whole lot of mission support that goes on to support that. And so, so strategic operations exists to help liberate you from those burdens, and so we focus on providing that support for you. And notice it's an IP symposium, service mark, talking with the lawyers later about getting that through the system. So where do we fit in the organization? Suresh already told you we're under S&TPO. It's a little highlighted box up there. And you know, there are a couple paragraphs here about specifically what do we do. But the origins of this really came from J. Caesar and how we structured mission support within J. Caesar. And we provided a single point of contact for all of mission support. So the director of J. Caesar had a deputy director for operations that he would engage with. And anytime there were issues relating to mission support, he would have one person to go to. That person then dispatched out to the various organizations that he needed to communicate with. And pictorially, this is kind of how it looks here. And by the way, public unveiling of the National Security Programs logo. We just decided on that Friday. You're seeing it for the first time here. I know it's exciting. So strategic operations, we engage with OCF, TCP, SEPA. My bad, I put ESQ. That's the old organization. I forget what they are now. Is it HSE? HR, procurement, legal. So all of these centers, and these, by the way, are the lab centers. All of these centers require a certain amount of support, a certain amount of mission support. And the way we're able to do this is we've taken the learnings from J. Caesar and that single point of contact effort, and we've scaled that down. So a lot of these do not require a full-time effort on this. So we're able to take our effort and spread it across the centers. For example, Tana Coons, who's in the back of the room here, provides communications and marketing support for both access and chain reaction innovations. She's able to do that because while on maybe a given day it requires all of her effort, collectively she's able to spread that effort across. So this is the same with many of the organizations here. So why does the laboratory have centers? And by the way, as you have questions along the process, please feel free to ask them. But why does the laboratory have centers? Really for two reasons. The first is impact. As Jeff and Suresh talked about earlier, we're trying to find solutions to real world problems. So it's great to be working on and inventing solutions at the laboratory, but when you can pair those solutions with problems that actually exist in the real world, that research becomes more impactful. And so we then are able to grow the work at the laboratory by pairing the capabilities that we have at the laboratory and providing these solutions and increasing the lab funding and diversifying the laboratory funding portfolio, which in this environment is particularly important. So the centers are really part of a portfolio approach at the laboratory. And they're closely related to LDRD and program development rotations, which I believe we may be talking a little bit about later in the entrepreneur process. But you can kind of think of these centers as laboratory incubators. So what the goal is to take programs, take what we think we can develop into a program and provide it some support to grow. because we have all this mission support, because we have other support with leadership of the centers, we're able to provide some guidance and some support for projects as they grow, and hopefully we'll get them to a point, we'll incubate them to a point where they can then spin out and be self-sustaining either under divisions or else otherwise outside of the centers. So kind of introducing you to who the centers are and why they exist. The first one is access, and I've got them here in alphabetical order and not in the order of importance. So the first one is access. So you guys can read the words up there, but quite simply, Argonne is world-class at energy storage research. And that energy storage research exists in a variety of departments, divisions, and ALD-ships at the laboratory. CSE, ES, MSD, we do work at the APS. And while each division may know what's going on within them, they don't always know what's going on cross-divisionally. So the idea is that access sits above all of the energy storage research, doesn't own it, but sits above it and kind of is able to coordinate. So if industry comes to us and says, hey, we have a problem, we're aware that that problem may require a unique solution that involves folks from ES, maybe some computational work out of MCS, as well as some scale-up out of ES. And we're able to bring the right team in place to capture that. One example of that is the lead-acid industry. They came to us with a problem, and everyone is aware that Argonne is really excellent in lithium-ion battery research and beyond, meaning future chemistries. Lead-acid is thought of as an old technology. Well, the lead-acid industry came to us and had a conversation with us, and through that conversation, we realized that actually a lot of the problems that they were having were challenges similar to what we were addressing in other chemistries. So we were able to bring to the table folks from various divisions and get them together, and ultimately we ended up having a CRADA with the lead-acid industry, which I believe is quite a significant dollar value and continues to move on. So that's quite significant for us. So the next one is Argonne Design Works. Argonne Design Works started its life as Nano Design Works, focused on developing and coordinating nanoscale research. But we quickly realized that what Argonne Design Works was doing, what Nano Design Works was doing, was much broader than just nano. So we've changed the name. We're now Argonne Design Works, or ADW. And we're really in place to coordinate materials research around the laboratory. So again, you'll hear a common theme here. It's similar to the work that was done in access and the energy storage research. Same exists with materials research. So one of the efforts that we're working on right now is an effort to develop a manufacturing facility at the laboratory that will really leverage a lot of the capabilities and highlight a lot of the work that's done multi-divisionally and multi-ALD ship. So we're trying to help coordinate that and provide a structure to help grow this. National security programs. So many people may not realize that we have a really strong national security portfolio at the laboratory. Again, common story. Multi-divisional, multi-ALD ship. It exists in nuclear engineering. It exists in MSD, MCS, high energy physics. I could go on. So what we're trying to do is coordinate opportunities here where if we're coordinating the efforts and skill sets that exist in multiple divisions, we're able to then have a more impactful approach to how we address national security. One of the issues that we're working on right now is propulsion beyond combustion, or hypersonic propulsion, is really important to the nation right now. So the laboratory has a really unique skill set here, having the APS, having some expertise in CSE and nuclear engineering, that if we're able to combine them, that we have the ability, we believe, to build what could be a $50 million a year program in a few years. So National Security Program is working to support this, develop a plan for capturing that work and growing those efforts. So we may be off, right? Again, we're here for impact and growth, but working on these efforts will eventually grow the laboratory in some capacity. And so we're trying to take these big challenges and provide a thoughtful, structured, systematic approach to how we're addressing them, providing the mission support services to help these be successful. chain reaction innovations. And I'd like to, before I talk about what chain reaction innovations is, I'd like to tell you who chain reaction innovations is. And you see up here our first cohort. We've got a couple of the folks in the room right now. So upper left, we have Julie and BJ, and they are working on developing a heavy-duty engine that runs on clean fuel. Lower left, we have Justin and Tyler. Now these guys are taking wastewater and using it as a medium to grow filamental fungus, which you can then use to filter certain chemicals. So right now, they're trying to develop a filter using this process that will filter volatile organic compounds out for the mining industry, which if they're able to do that is a significant solution for the mining industry. And I'd like to highlight Meltem that's sitting up over here. Meltem is working quite closely with Justin and Tyler to help them in this process. So upper right, we have Felipe Gomez del Campo, who's in the front row here. Felipe is working on a plasma injection system for turbine engines. You may think about jet engines, and the jet engines are designed to be optimal when they're at altitude and at cruising speed. And when you're taxiing, liftoff, and landing, those variations are actually less efficient for the engines. Felipe is developing a system where by injecting plasma into that process, you can make that more efficient and have a fuel savings. Lower right, we have Ian Hamilton. Ian is working on a battery that lasts 400 years. So effectively, he's doing that by taking radioisotopes and using that as the fuel source for the batteries. His end goal is to actually develop a system, develop batteries that can power remote cell towers in remote locations. And then we have Chad Mason on the far right. Chad is developing a membrane-free fuel cell. So what is chain reaction innovations? It's a really unique opportunity that the Department of Energy established a couple years ago. You may be familiar with Cyclotron Road. Chain Reaction Innovations is Argonne Cyclotron Road. It's a lab-embedded entrepreneurship program where we're teaching early stage entrepreneurs how to develop their technology and to give them some mentoring as far as it relates to both technological support as well as business support. So what we're effectively trying to do, represented in the picture, is bridge that valley of death. They've got this great idea and they want to do something with it, but they can't quite yet figure out how to get to that stage where people are investing in them and they're manufacturing it. Well, what Chain Reaction Innovations does is it's a program through DOE where you get 2 years of salary, as well as some funding to develop your research at the laboratory. So when you're at the laboratory, you've obviously got access to world-class R&D facilities as well as world-class R&D researchers. So that's an opportunity that doesn't exist elsewhere. But in addition to that, we provide them with business mentoring. So Chain Reaction Innovations has partnered, small p, with the Polsky Center out of the University of Chicago, as well as a Purdue Foundry, to supplement the mentoring that we provide them internally. So we'll provide them with technical mentoring and some business mentoring, but these centers, Polsky and the Purdue Foundry, really provide them with a lot of structure and business mentoring support as well. So my background is I'm kind of a recovering patent attorney. And when I was in private practice, I used to have people come to me, and you may hear this story later on, but I used to have people coming to me in private practice saying, I have this really great idea, can you help me get a patent on it? And I might say, yes, I can help you get a patent on it. What are you going to do with it, right? Because if you don't know what you're going to do with that idea, at the end of the day, if you have a patent, all you have is a piece of paper. So you want to pair that idea with a plan. And so that's part of the critical structure that we provide in CRI, is helping these innovators understand, you've got an idea, how are you going to pair that idea with an action, and who are your customers going to be? So the centers are open for business, and we're happy to work with you, and I guess you could ask, how do I get in touch with them? Well, you can always contact Suresh or myself. We're always available for you, and we can get you in contact with the right people. But if you know exactly who you want to work with, I want to introduce you to the directors of these centers. So Access is run by Venkat Srinivasan. So his contact information is here. He's a great guy. If you see him out walking around, please feel free to just go up to him. He's very friendly. ADW is run by Pete Chupas. Keith Bradley is running the National Security Program. And John Carlisle, who will be on the entrepreneur panel later, is running chain reaction innovations. John has a really unique background. He was a former staff scientist here, I believe in physics, MSD. He's a PhD physicist, was a staff scientist in MSD, spun out a company with Argonne Technology. It was Advanced Diamond Technologies, was out doing that for about 10 years before he returned to the laboratory. So really unique background and particularly well situated to be running this effort in chain reaction innovations. So briefly, I want to talk to you about intellectual property management plans. And I did not know that there were going to be light bulb cookies in the back. So it's just, this is how these things work, but make sure you get a light bulb cookie. So intellectual property management plans, they're really important. And so a quick story. When we did the J. Caesar proposal effort, again, a lot of what we're doing in strategic operations are learnings from what we did with J. Caesar and scaled to be more applicable across the laboratory. When we won J. Caesar, the DOE gave us formal feedback as to why we won J. Caesar. One of those reasons, there were 4 reasons, one of those reasons was that we had a fully executed intellectual property management plan at the time we submitted our proposal. The details of the plan are not important, but what it communicated to DOE was important. It communicated to them that we had reduced the barriers to collaboration. We had thought through the issues that were going to be coming, and it's not perfect, but we had thought through the issues that were going to be coming, and we were able to document that. One of the messages you're going to hear throughout the day, and you've already heard in Suresh and Jeff's talk, is growth at the laboratory. It's also part of the reason why the centers exist. So when you talk about growth, invariably that involves working with others that are outside of Argonne. And sometimes that's going to require you to respond to a funding opportunity that's going to be multi-party. I challenge you to challenge the support staff here, legal and TCP. They've got a lot of experience in this. But I challenge you to challenge them to not just check boxes in producing an intellectual property management plan. Part of what made the J. Caesar effort successful is we talked to the parties who were involved in the process, and we listened and found out what was important to them. We were then able to take that and craft an intellectual property management plan that would fit their needs and fit our needs. And it's not perfect, right? When we did J. Caesar, when you do multi-party agreements, there's never going to be perfect because you're all coming at it with different perspectives. In some ways, you're looking to develop something that everybody can just hold their nose to, right, and move forward with. But it's important to get the basics down because you reduce the barriers to collaboration, which is critical. And as a researcher, you don't really care what the details of the intellectual property management plan say. I suspect you've probably rarely ever read one, and that's okay. You shouldn't burden yourself with that. But what you want to know is that when you're doing your research, you can work with party X at a different institution and know things are covered, right? And then I would pair that with an umbrella non-disclosure agreement to allow for that freedom of collaboration. And when we do that, and you'll be hearing more about this later on, when we do that, you then, again, I'll go back to reduce the barriers to collaboration. We're here the mission support is here to reduce these things that could prevent you from being successful. Intellectual property management plans are key to that when you're talking about multi-party efforts. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to address them. Jeff.
Which is for the
Thanks a lot for that presentation. Just a quick question, which is for the chain reaction innovation on the left-hand side, you had the inventors. Is that just Argonne people, or can that be anybody?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me go back to this. None of these are Argonne people, right? So that's not to say we can't have it. It is open to Argonne employees. If you do take advantage of the opportunity, you would have to also take advantage of an entrepreneurial leave, and we can help you with that. But as to these individuals, none of them are Argonne employees, and none of them are actually from the state of Illinois.
But do you want to add perhaps that they are, each of them is working?
Thank you, that's critical. So we have paired each of them up with PIs at Argonne to help them mature their technology. Yes.
So if there's some.
So no, so the idea is that it will be continual, right? This is our first time, and we're going through this experiment for us right now. And the idea is that it will be continual.
Okay, so when will be the next time you can apply?
Right.
So people in my team maybe in
Right.
the state.
So we understand, okay, so we're currently shuffling through some budget issues right now, not at Argonne, but nationally, right? There is broad support for this effort. And in the proposed budget, this was favorably identified, this sort of effort. So, but we understand that there's a process, and this has to go through the process, and ultimately where this shakes out, we don't know. I can tell you as a laboratory, there's value in this, and the laboratory has provided some resources to help support this. So the laboratory sees the value in this and the need for this sort of a program. So the idea is that this will continue on. As to when the next cohort is coming up, I wish I could have told you, stood here and said, okay, we're going to launch it in July. We think it's likely going to be starting in FY18. But we'll make sure that we're communicating this broadly internally as well as externally to make sure that if you have an idea, or if you know somebody that might have an idea, you can get in touch with us. In fact, Tana Coons in the back. Tana, would you raise your hand, please? If anybody already knows that they may have an idea that they want to pursue or may want to take advantage of this program later, Tana's kind of coordinating the outreach effort for us. So please let her know, and she'll make sure that she gets in touch with you. There is a place on the CRI for pre-applications. Thank you.
At Argonne, we do a lot of national security work. I know that, well, I may be wrong about this, but I know classified work is generally not patentable. What about non-classified sensitive technology, like sensitive nuclear technology? Is that patentable? And then would you work with the National Security Program on that sort of thing?
So, as I said, I'm a recovering patent attorney, but I know better than to, when there are actually practicing patent attorneys in the room, to answer that question. So Mark, or Pete, if you have any thoughts, please feel free. Mark?
Classified doesn't mean that it's not patentable. The issue is that the patent attorneys would need to have clearances, and when it goes to the Patent and Trademark Office, it would be subject to a secrecy order, and it wouldn't be actually published for quite a while. One of the things when I first joined Argonne, a couple weeks after I joined, one of the original nuclear patents from the 1950s had just come off of its secrecy order, and one of our tasks was to try to find those inventors and those heirs to give them a patent award, 50 years after the patent had been filed. So.
Yeah.
We would just have to treat it.
Any other questions? Thank you.